All right, Improvement and Service Committee will come to order, and Wednesday, January 31st, we'll note that Alderman Vanderleest, Alderman Ennig, Alderman Weary are here. Chairman Nicholson is on his way. The first item, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, January 10th, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Ennig, second by Alderman Vanderleest. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Number 2 is an approval of the agenda. You need to change or move? Nope, okay.
Move to approve.
Motion by Alderman Ennig,
Second.
second by Alderman Vanderleest to approve the agenda. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Number 3, consideration with possible action on request by Alderman Duane to have a streetlight study performed on Van Beek Road from Aphrodite to Alpine Drive. Director.
We have included in your packet a graphic that shows, first page shows is an aerial photo, shows the existing light spacing on Van Beek Road between Aphrodite and Alpine. A little hard to see because some of the text is bleeding into the road names, but from Aphrodite to the first light to the east is about 635 feet. Then there's a 170-foot spacing to the existing light on the corner of Van Beek and Lena, and then it's 530 feet down to Alpine. That exceeds our desirable spacing of 300, so if you flip that sheet over, the aerial photo, on the backside, you'll see where we are proposing, and if you'll look, this subdivision was laid out in 1979. The kind of corridor look, if you will, down the middle of the block is actually a utility easement. That's where the power poles are. And where the yellow dot is on the Van Beek, on the sort of the left side of your graphic, you can see that a corridor comes from the middle of the block out. That's exactly what that is. There's a power pedestal there for a future streetlight. So one was anticipated. So that would be down to 320 feet, then 315 feet to an existing light, then again 170 feet. Then we'll go down and we're looking at spacing one at 315 feet, which leaves us 320 to the next light at Alpine. If you take careful look there, you'll see that that yellow dot does not exactly line up with where the anticipation was, just kind of how things were designed back in '79. So what we'll do is we'll come down that corridor and then we'll have to come across the front of the property at 2685 to get closer to the lot line to make the spacing more consistent. So the street light study is what you see here on the graphic. We did identify that it is below our normal spacing. Recommendation would be to install 2 poles. Each of them are 9,000 lumen LED street lights. The first between 2623 and 2629 Van Beek. The second would be between 2677 and 2685. Cost of installation is $2,460.82 by the estimate provided by Wisconsin Public Service, and the work would not be completed until the cold weather or frost charges are out of the ground. So I will communicate that if the decision is to approve this, I will communicate that with Alderman Duane to let him know the 2 lights are coming, but we're going to wait until the frost charges. Otherwise, it increases our cost to install them.
Alderman Duane saw the proposal and
He has not yet.
Okay.
I told him that it would be coming forward to INS. The discussion that we had, I did tell him that we saw things were below standard spacing, and we would be making a recommendation to have additional lights installed. And his indication to me was he trusted you guys to take care of and do the right
that's
thing.
his mistake.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Motion by Alderman Nennig to approve the recommendation. Is there a second?
I guess with one quick question.
Second by Alderman Vanderleest, go ahead.
The money was this money already allotted in the 2018 budget?
This money would come out of our streetlight maintenance account, yes.
That's fine then.
All right. There's a motion and a second in favor. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4 is consideration with possible action on a request by Green Bay Public Arts Commission to locate a pad for the rotating sculpture program within city right-of-way along Dousman near Lake Park.
Green Bay Public Arts Commission has a program for their rotating arts program. And they've been looking for suitable locations to put the concrete pads in that the sculptures will be located on. We've been working with them, actually a variety of different departments within the city have been working, and we're looking at potentially locating some in park property, some on private property. As much as possible, we've been trying to stay out of the public right-of-way, because a lot of times right-of-way is constrained and there's a lot of stuff going on there. Due to how the right-of-way from the prior to 1998 Main Street Bridge was located, a lot of that old right-of-way was never cleaned up, I guess is one way to put it. So we've got inconsistent, the right-of-way jogs all over the place on both sides of the Main Street Bridge. And with that, what normally would be park property associated with Light Park is actually public right-of-way, but it is set far enough back from the road that we're comfortable with it. So I'm just gonna hand down, Laura Schley was able to give me one copy of the graphic tonight. You'll see there are 3 red circles. Any of those 3 locations would be acceptable to the Green Bay Public Arts Commission. Because Green Bay Public Arts Commission is a function of city government, we're not required to enter into a hold harmless agreement, but we have taken these when they've been located in a park. We've taken it through Parks Committee in the past, so here we're putting one in the right of way, we're bringing it through INS for your review and approval. Standard conditions as far as actual field location will be worked on cooperatively between the Public Arts Commission and our traffic engineer to ensure there are no site obstructions and things like that. But we're in support of one of those 3 locations. We'll just pick the best of the 3 in the spring.
Okay, so there's no preferred one?
Nope. Like I said, I talked to Laura before the meeting, and she said she would be happy with any of the 3 locations. We'll go out there and just sort of field fit it to make sure that we get one that works for their purposes, and then it doesn't create any kind of a site obstruction for anybody leaving Light Park. But we're in support of it.
Any other questions? Motion to approve by Alderman Vanderleest.
Second.
Second by Alderman Nicholson. Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks. And Chairman Nicholson.
We're on 5.
Yes.
5, consideration, possible action on the review and approval of 2018 special assessment factors and rates. Director Grenier.
Every year we come forward to you to talk about special assessments, and what we've provided to you is the summary table of the proposed special assessment rates and factors for this year. Just a quick reminder on how we go about this. The way that the assessment ordinance is set up for sewer rates, you pay by assessable front foot for both sanitary and storm. Water utility computes their rates independently, but it's computed on the same basis. And what we rely on very heavily is a combination of comparison of last year's rates to the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index, which is a means of tracking inflation, and we also look at trending of prior construction costs. It has been quite a few years since we made any kind of major adjustment on sanitary or storm sewer, and what we have found is with new construction going on, with the market upturn, it actually has bumped construction material pricing up substantially. So what we looked at very heavily for the sanitary and storm sewer assessment rates was new construction for residential subdivisions, and we had a couple of those subdivisions go in, so we have what we feel to be very relevant recent numbers on that. So the proposal is to take sanitary sewer from $47 to $65 a front foot. Sewer with rock excavation will stay at $95. The rock excavation, we haven't had a whole lot of that, and we're not anticipating seeing a lot of construction that's going to require rock excavation, so we don't necessarily need to bump that one right now. The sanitary connection, a 4-inch connection, goes from $13.75 to $14.25 each. 4-inch with rock goes from $23.75 to $24.25. Again, that's more the material cost, not necessarily the rock excavation going up. 6-inch sanitary goes from $1,600 to $1,675 per, and with rock goes from $2,600 to $2,675 per. Storm sewer is proposed to go from $60 per front foot to $65 a foot. 6-inch storm connection goes from $900 to $950 each. 12-inch connection goes from $1,600 to $1,675 each. And the stormwater management fee per ERU, this is the fee that is paid on your water bill for stormwater, is proposed to go from $2,500 up to $2,700. That actually was part of the stormwater fees that we adopted earlier this year, at the end of last year. Water utility, they are looking at residential. What's it? Oh, sure. Again, these numbers came over to us from water utility. They are proposing for residential water main to go from $55 a front foot to $65 a front foot, and water main with rock excavation from $85 to $95 a front foot. If it's larger than an 8-inch main, which is our standard, it goes from $65 to $75 a front foot. Larger than an 8-inch main with rock goes from $95 to $105 per front foot. A 1-inch lateral, if it's installed at the same time as a new water main, goes from $1,500 to $1,700 each. If you have to do that same installation with rock excavation, it goes from $2,500 to $2,700 each. Somebody's installing a new 1-inch or replacing a 1-inch lateral on an existing water main, it goes from $2,700 to $3,700. If they are doing it with rock excavation, it goes from $3,700 to $4,700. A new 1-inch service connection is actual cost, which has been the practice of Green Bay Water Utility for many years. And same thing with anything larger than a 1-inch service connection. You would typically see larger than a 1-inch service connection. That's large enough for a residential facility, but if you have either multifamily or commercial, restaurants, I believe, require like 1.5 inches because of higher demand for dishwashers and things like that. Then we get into our street construction and pavement assessment rates. And here, under our assessment ordinance, what we are required to do is establish an assessment factor. And what the assessment factor is supposed to represent is the cost of new construction, basically in a farm field. Now, we have had a couple of subdivisions where we've had some of those costs. Speaking with Jim, those costs are actually a little higher than what we would have expected and would have resulted in a pretty substantial jump in our assessment factors. And we think there are some other factors at play that may have played into how those numbers came in, not the least of which was paving later in the season. So again, we also take a look at some trend analysis over the last couple of years as opposed to just last year's numbers, and take a look at the Engineering News Record cost indices to try to smooth some of that out so we're not hitting people with a big jump. So with asphalt reconstructs, which would be our type A, type B, type C street. A street is actually like a brand new street. For asphalt streets, we have been, going back to 2009, we were at $105 for an assessment factor, and we held that for 2009 and 10. In 2011, we went up to $110 a front foot, and we were able to hold that for 3 years. In 2014, we jumped up to $115 a front foot, and we've been at $115 for 3 years. The proposal is to go to $125 a front foot on asphaltic pavements, and again, that's an assessment factor. So that would represent brand new construction. So if you look at the asphalt rates, proposed rates for asphalt pavement on a type A street, that's why you see the full cost. The full cost of a new street that never existed before is assessed back against the adjacent property owners. Once we get down into a type B street, our assessment ordinance calls for that assessment factor to start having some reductions to it. So it's on a percentage basis. So in a residentially zoned area, we're looking at going from $69 a front foot to $75, and all other zone classifications are going from $103 to $112.50. Again, that's on a percentage basis of the $125 versus the $115 for the assessment factor. Type C streets, that's the most common type of reconstruct. A type B is what we call an urbanizing project. So if you have a rural street, and we are proposing to do some of that this year, that would be out in Alderman Slottick's district. Hillcrest Drive is currently a rural section. There's shoulders, no curb and gutter. A type B street would take a rural street and make it an urban street where there's curb and gutter and storm sewer and things like that. A type C street is what we're more used to, and that's a typical reconstruct where existing street, curb and gutter, we tear it all out, fix the utilities, then put the brand new street back down. Again, these are all percentages from the assessment ordinance, all rooted in that $125 assessment factor. So local streets residentially zoned are going from $34.50 to $37.50 per foot. Residential zones on bus or heavy traffic routes go from $31.05 to $33.75 a front foot. All other zone classifications go from $74.80 to $81.30 per front foot. Once we get into the STP and NHS streets, that's Surface Transportation Program and National Highway System, these are the streets that we, like our Mather, Gray, and North Webster, excuse me, that we're receiving federal aid. Because of the amount of federal aid that comes in as a result of that, the cost sharing that goes on, we generally can discount the assessment rates because we're not allowed to make money through assessments. So again, STP and NHS rates on residentially zoned property goes from $23 to $25 a front foot. Residential zones on bus or heavy traffic routes goes from $20.70 to $22.50 per front foot. All other zone classifications go from $74.80 to $81.30 per front foot. For the street reconstructs, all types of streets that we just went through on asphalt, the concrete pavement assessment factor is not proposed to go up for 2018, so we would propose to hold our assessment rates in all zoning classifications for concrete reconstructs, same as they were last year. That brings us to asphalt resurfacing, and just by way of comparison, concrete streets, going back to 2008, we were at $190 a front foot, and we were at that $190 per front foot. We held that rate for 3 years. Starting in 2011, we were at $200 per front foot for 5 years, and this will be the third year in a row that we've been able to hold $205 per front foot as an assessment factor for concrete streets. That brings us to asphalt resurfacing. And asphalt resurfacing, again, this is intended to reflect, I believe it's 60% of the cost of the asphalt is the assessment that we're looking to recover. So we do keep some trending analysis over the last, looks like about 12 years here, showing how the upper and lower bounds and the assessment factor we've been holding. Prices last year were good, but we're hearing some rumblings from the industry that asphalt costs may be going up slightly this year. Our recommendation would be to hold the assessment factor from 2017 into 2018 at $28.40 a front foot. That would net out to an assessment on a residentially zoned street staying at $17 a front foot, residentially zoned on a bus or heavy traffic route at $15.30 a front foot, and all other zone classifications will stay at $25.60. I believe even with a minor increase in asphalt costs in 2018, we're still going to be where we need to be as far as assessments go. This will be This will be the 6th year in a row that we've been able to hold those asphalt resurfacing costs. We had a pretty big spike in cost, actual cost assessed to us, or charged to us by our contractors, between 2012 and 2013, so we made a market adjustment at that time, and we've been able to hold ever since. Then, for assessments, once we accept a street and we send the invoices out to property owners for assessments, for anyone who doesn't pay the entire assessment net 30 and we finance that, we do charge an interest rate, and what we charge is 2% above the bond rate that we got charged. So that way we cover our bond issuance costs as well as the interest rate on the bond that we're fronting the money for people. And that extra 2% in addition to the bond issuance costs also provides for some administrative fees, because clerk's office is going to have to send out, generally speaking, a total of 5 invoices, and that costs money to do that. So based on what we're hearing out of finance department, we are expecting about 2.75 as an interest rate on bonding. So we're able to hold the interest rate on unpaid special assessments at 4.75 again this year. A lot of information to soak up in a short period of time. Good news is, for resurfacing and concrete, we have been able to hold the line. Asphalt streets are going up slightly, but this is the first adjustment we've had in 4 years. And while we've been successful in holding the line on sewer costs over the last several years, with the economy picking up and building picking up, there's more demand for those materials, and materials costs are going up, so we're going to have to pass some of that along to folks. So any questions you have?
I got a question, but does anybody else?
Well, it basically follows our ordinance, our assessment ordinance, and it's based on costs and the methods that are established in our ordinance. So I don't think there's a whole lot that we as a committee can do, but go ahead.
Well, Steve, when I went over the agenda with you, I asked you if we could tweak it, and you
Yep.
stated yes. So we could raise or lower it, correct?
You can, yes.
Okay. So I don't know what you're talking, Dave, I don't know what you mean.
Well, if I might, the process, we have the ability to, the committee has the ability to approve the assessment factor. And then everything after that is set by the ordinance. It's all on percentages. So if, within reason, the committee has some ability to modify those assessment factors. We make you a recommendation based on what we feel. If you wanted to generate more revenue, you can raise the assessment factors for pavement. The only caution I would give to you by doing that is we then have to track those. These are based off of our best estimates on where things are going to come in, and we've been pretty successful at doing that. If we then, and we do this anyway, we then track construction projects over the course of that year to ensure that we didn't collect more in assessments than what the construction was worth. We didn't make money on it. If we do, and on a couple of the STP or NHS type projects, Monroe Avenue being one of them, we did collect more than what our share of the project was. We are then obligated to either modify that assessment rate, or if folks have prepaid, we actually refund on that, okay? So there is a little bit of a danger if we bump those assessment rates up too high. Alternatively, if we decide to reduce the assessment rates, the net effect there is we don't collect as much money in revenue, and levy-supported borrowing or borrowing through the storm or sanitary utility has to pick that up, and they're, we're taking those bonds out typically for 20 years, so we're paying 20-year interest on that if we're not collecting money through assessments.
Okay. Any questions, Steve? Do you have anything? I got a question. Steve, on the first page,
Yep.
6-inch and 12-inch storm connection.
Yes.
Could you explain those two?
Generally speaking, 6-inch storm connection is extended out for a residential property, and a 12-inch storm connection goes out to a commercial property.
Okay, this, I'm more concerned with the 6-inch storm. Is that a mini sewer?
No, this would be the lateral coming from the house that would connect to either the main or the mini storm. So that's actually the lateral connection fee for a property owner.
Okay, and with that connection, what does that accomplish when they connect the lateral to the mini storm or the other one? I mean, if, let's say a resident doesn't have a connection, what would be the purpose for them to have the connection? What would that, if you have the connection, what does it do for the resident?
Okay. If we are putting storm sewer in a brand-new street, or if it's a type B street in the urban expansion or reserve district where a new main's going in, we will assess for the main.
Okay, what about if it's type C street?
Okay, if you're in a type C street, the main has already been paid for, but this provides some funding for the inspection to make sure that the connection was done correctly. There is some funding for administrative to track that the connection was made and log that in. And then there's some recovery of the cost of the original main that's all included in that storm, in the connection fee.
Okay. But when a resident connects the lateral to a mini storm, or what was the other?
Or just the storm main.
Or a storm main,
Right.
what does that accomplish? Does that,
It provides them with a point to discharge stormwater. Essentially, most often it's for sump pumps.
okay. Will it do anything for like their backyard if it
It
floods?
can, it
Okay.
can. If they put in a yard drain or something, that
Okay.
provides them with a point of connection. So, if somebody did not have an existing stormwater connection and they wanted to extend one out, take a 6-inch connection, connect up either to the main or to a mini storm, and they could connect both, they could connect their sump pump, a yard drain in the backyard, and their downspouts if they want to. We'll run that lateral out and you can hook as much
Okay.
to it as you want to. Alternatively, if somebody already had a connection for their sump pump and they wanted to tap off of that and go tie their roof drains or put something in the backyard, it would probably require the $50 plumbing permit through inspection department because they're gonna wanna make sure it was done correctly.
Correct.
But yeah, yard drains and things like that can be tapped off of that storm drain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is because over the years, I always felt it was too high. The 900, I think, when I first came in office, I think it was close to 750.
Probably, yeah.
And I thought that was too high, and it keeps going up and up and up. But what kind of, I guess, there's people that pay taxes for basically help from the city, and if they have issues because they live in a flat area that collects water and everything, I guess, why do we have them pay $900?
Well,
I know you said it was administrative fees, but they pay taxes. I
Well,
just
and
can't, I
that's the
just feel that it should be lowered.
that's the other part of this is storm and sanitary are not part of the levy. So storm and sanitary are actually utilities. And as a utility, they have to close their budgets every year as well. So I understand why folks come to us and say, well, I am a taxpayer, what do I pay my taxes for? They're actually not, your property taxes are not paying for storm or sanitary, which is why you get a sanitary bill, and on your sanitary bill, which is part of your water bill, why the stormwater charges are on there as well.
Right.
So, are there other ways we could look at this? Yeah, there are. So instead of charging for the connections, we could potentially put that in as part of the larger cost of the storm utility, And then that ERU charge at the bottom, that stormwater management fee in lieu of, that's if somebody's doing a subdivision and they don't put or can't put
Well, I'm just
a pond.
strictly on
Okay.
type C streets.
Right. When we establish that per ERU fee after we adopt the stormwater budget, if we didn't charge the connection fees, we'd have to make that up somewhere, which means the cost per ERU would have to come up.
Okay. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility. I think for 2018, it'd be difficult because we've already adopted the per ERU fee, and if we're not collecting these fees, the connection fees up front, there's a possibility we could run in the red.
How much of a possibility?
Everything depends on how much construction's out there.
Okay. So we really don't know then.
Correct.
How much is the administrative fees that are part of this $950?
Offhand, I don't know. I would have to get that and get back to you.
Then there was a couple other fees that were involved with this also. What were they again, you mentioned? You said administrative fees?
Yeah, part of it's the administrative, part of it's the inspection,
Inspection?
and part of it is recovery of the main that wasn't assessed.
What does that entail?
The storm main was installed, and that was installed at city cost, so we're just charging a small fraction of that back. That went in at no cost to the property owner. A lot of these went in during sewer separation, so the mains are rather old.
Okay.
And that original cost, again, when we put a new street in, we're assessing the cost of that main at $60 a foot, a front foot.
I understand.
A little bit of that is coming back against the property owner.
Can there be another, basically another, what's the word I'm looking for? Another column just for 6-inch storm connection for type C streets? Because the $950 is strictly for 6-inch storm connection for all streets, right?
Correct.
Okay. Can there be another column for just type C streets? For the 6-inch storm connection with a lower rate? Instead of $950, could it be like $600? Depending on what the fees are, because administrative fee, a fee is a fee, and so is an inspection fee. I mean, I don't see a cost to the city on that, except for an inspector to go out and take a look at it, an administrative fee, and whatever the recovery of the main is. Is that a possibility?
Offhand, I don't know. I will have to coordinate with the utility director and see if that's something that we could do.
I got a quick question then, Steve.
What just to let the committee know, over the years, I just felt that these rates were all too high. I was just wondering if there's a way to reduce the fees to help out some of the residents that are having issues with, with the water in their yards and in their houses that basically can't handle some of the rainstorms, that's all. And maybe this would alleviate some of the problems. I don't know, what, Mr. Vandelis, you got a question?
I think that
Comment?
in other parts of the city, different parts of the city, where they separated the sanitary sewer from the storm sewer, I think that where a lot of this came into play. Is that correct, Steve? In some of the districts there, years ago, they didn't have much for, they had the sanitary sewer, but they didn't have any storm sewers. So I think a lot of it's been upgraded. In other words, with all the plastic PVC pipe, where the streets, in other words, it runs into the street and
Well,
and
a
then
lot
you
of-
got all your,
A lot of the sewer separation areas, some of those is where we see a lot of mini storm.
running right into the sanitary sewer, and that's what you're trying to alleviate, right? You don't
No,
want
no,
that-
no. Well, back then, everything ran into a single sewer. And when they did sewer separation in the 50s and 60s, more often than not, what happened is they put 2 8-inch sanitaries in, one on each side of the road, and left the bigger diameter sewer, which was a combined sewer, for storm sewer. But a lot of times, those laterals weren't the best. The laterals were old as well. So they took the sanitary laterals, ran them to the new sanitary, and a lot of those streets don't have storm sewer connection. And in those cases, oftentimes what we've done is ran mini storm out there instead. So that, a lot of times that's where we see the mini storm. Then once we get into a reconstruct situation, we'll get, a lot of times we'll get rid of that mini storm and just put a single storm sewer out and extend the laterals back out.
As far as the city's concerned, people that are not tapped into the storm sewer with their sump pumps, the city encourages them to tap in. That's where some of the cost comes in, is that correct?
Well, we do encourage it, but as long as it's not creating a nuisance condition for the neighbors, we won't push the issue. There are several areas, matter of fact, we see a lot of them out in your district. Up in the Wood Lane, Oakwood area, where they're up on a hill and it's sandy, and the infiltration rates are high enough that it's not really helping anything by tapping into a storm sewer, so they're still allowed to discharge to grade because it doesn't create an icing condition, it doesn't flood the neighbors, that kind of stuff. So it depends on where you are in the city.
But if you do tap into that sump pump into the storm sewer, there is a charge. What is that charge then?
That's this charge we're talking about.
Okay, that's the charge. I know a lot of people, you tell them that fee and they look at you like, wow. And I understand where they're coming from. It's expensive, but it does alleviate a lot of problems, especially if you got some neighbor that's getting his basement flooded out every other week in springtime. Because it decreases the surface water immensely.
And I'm gonna have to check with Matt again. There's just something bugging me about this in the back of my head, that when we build a new street or when we reconstruct a street, if we're building a new street, we will run that lateral out to the property line. And something is telling me that part of this $950 is intended to recover, not necessarily the main, but to recover the lateral, because we would have put that in at no cost to the property owner. But the way our ordinance is written, the lateral from the main all the way to the house for both storm and sanitary is the cost responsibility of the property owner. So part of this $950 is we're trying to recover the cost of us bringing from the main to the property line. So
On a new
verify.
construct.
On any street, because a lot of times, even if you don't have, if you're not hooked up, but there's a lateral there for you to hook up to,
Yeah.
okay? They charge the $950, and part of that is administrative, part of it's inspection, and part of it is to recover the cost of that lateral from the main out to the property line that we've already put in and paid for. There's something about that rings familiar, so I want to check that out with Matt as well.
Does anybody else have any? Yeah, Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I do agree, obviously, the mini sewer program is popular. It's, my district certainly has some water issues, and unfortunately, a lot of people who have the water problem, when they find out the fee, and then it's not just the fee, then they have to hire, the people to put it into their property, they can't do it. So they have to figure out a way to deal with water. And it always causes neighbor issues, and if there is a way that we could lower this, I think I remember when we first started on council, it was like $400 or $500, but that was 15 years ago. But it seemed to have gone up a lot the last 10 years. Yeah, if we could get the exact cost breakdown and see where we could tweak it, because I think the value of the program is so high that we could lower the cost and then share it citywide, and then encourage people to do it, and we'd have a lot happier, healthier neighborhoods, just my opinion.
If I could just make a couple comments, I've had many sewers going in my district too, and you know, usually people are happy that they don't have to pay an assessment to get a mini sewer installed on their street. There's no assessment for installing that. But what you have to pay is the main, the connection. If you want to connect to it. And I don't know what the right number is, you know, for it. We certainly can look at, you know, at that. You know, part of it might be comparing what our costs are to typical, you know, to other communities around. I can give you an example. In my at my mother's house in West Bend, her street was reconstructed 2 years ago, and she owns a vacant lot next to her home. And she, even though there's no sewer connection there at all, she had to pay for the lateral from the middle of the street to the inside of the sidewalk. And it was $2,000, even though she's never used it, and she probably never will. So, you know, what our system is that the city puts it in from the middle of the road, or wherever the mains are, to the property line, and we try to recover part of it that does. So I mean, there are different ways of doing it, but I can tell you, like in my mother's case, just for the lateral from the middle of the road to the inside of the sidewalk, she had to pay $2,000 for a vacant lot. So I don't know what the right numbers are here, but you know, I know people are always concerned when they hear about a connection fee and, you know, costs going up. I don't know what we recover in a year in connection fees. Do we have any idea?
Offhand, I would have to look that up.
Okay.
I doubt if the city's making any money on any of these connections,
Yeah.
No, we're not.
you know. And when you do have to use it, you have to pay the fee. I think that's the bottom line. From what you're saying, Dave.
Yeah, you know, and when I look at this, I know, Andy, your concern is about Class C streets, but, you know, if you're connecting to a sewer, you know, mini sewer or sewer main, what's the difference if you're a type A, B, or C? You're still connecting to it. You know, A is a new street, okay, but you're connecting to, you know, from a house that's being built there. You're connecting to the city's main. If you have an existing street with no curb and gutter, you're connecting to it. You know, and the same is true with type C. I'm not sure what the difference is. In any event, you're getting a connection, a stormwater connection that you didn't have, you know, prior to that. So I don't know what the distinction is there. I know, you know, the Class C streets are what we typically think about, you know, in our districts with resurfacing and that, but I don't know what the difference is.
Well, a new street, how many people live on a new street when they're paving it through?
Well, but the
Not as many
properties-
as people with the curb and gutter, type C.
Yeah, but
So,
the
I mean, the
properties are
city,
assessed
just a minute,
to it.
I want to answer your question. With type A, I mean, doesn't the city already hook that up, or they have that already hooked up when they're putting in new streets, don't they, Steve, or no?
No, when we do a type A street, like a new subdivision, there would be an assessment charge for the main, and that's what made me think of, you know, that correction that I made. Then we'll extend the laterals off the main out to the property line, but the city would be paying for all that up front.
Well, why won't we have the property owner pay for all that?
Well, then when a property is sold for development and the house goes in,
Okay?
home builder comes in, takes out their permits, and one of the fees they pay is this $950 fee for stormwater connection.
All right?
And part of that is the cost of the lateral that we extended out. What Alderman Denning was talking about with the mini storm, because when mini storm goes in, we don't assess the main, if you will, for a mini storm. That goes in at no cost. We're recovering part of that as part of this connection fee in lieu of a lateral going out, we're actually putting that pipe in the terrace and recovering part of that.
Okay. Well, I'd still see like the, well, I mean,
Yeah, I'm more than happy to try to break this down.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the breakdown, but I was just gonna just have, just look at type C streets, but, I mean, the way you're talking, Dave, I mean, we could take a look at type A, B, and C. Because it looks like we're recovering basically the 950 on type A streets.
Well, we charge the same fee on all streets.
Right, but when the homeowner comes in, they're paying that fee with the home builder you just said.
Right, it would be the
Okay.
same, it'd be the same thing on a type C street.
Okay.
It's really the same, the only difference between a type A and a type C is on a type A, the homeowner is likely being levied an assessment for the main and a connection fee for the
Right.
lateral. Whereas on a type C street, some prior property owner paid the assessment for the main, but because they weren't hooked up to the lateral already, they haven't paid for the lateral, that's what the connection fee.
Okay. And then type C, I mean, obviously this program wasn't in effect because they haven't paid for it. They're already, it must be.
Well, it
older
could
neighborhoods, huh?
be a situation where the lateral was extended, but years ago, they were not required
Right.
to hook up to it. Whereas, I think a lot of the mandatory, there was a
yeah, that's what I
mandatory
meant, yeah.
hookup program that came up when we were doing the Clearwater inspections, making sure that your flow drains was hooked to the right spot and your sump pump was going to the right spot,
Right.
kind of thing. That's when a lot of the mandatory connections were done.
So type A streets are getting connected.
More often than not, yes.
Right.
And there could be some type C streets out there where things aren't hooked up yet.
No.
If there are laterals available to the storm sewer, that's where we have folks hook up.
Okay.
If there are not laterals available, there
Well,
are
I'm talking about
areas.
strictly just the laterals that are available.
Okay, because I was gonna
Yeah.
say, there are streets, especially in
If
the
they're
old town
not,
of
if they're not
Provo,
available, I mean,
where
that's
there's a storm
different.
sewer there, but there's no
Right.
laterals.
Right.
And rather than have people dig up the street, that's where we go and put the mini storm in.
Right. Okay. I'd still like to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Steve, is there any pressing need to have this done tonight if we bring back your information and talk about it in 2 weeks?
About the only thing that's really hanging fire with it is we do wind up using these rates for what's called a development fee invoice. And anytime that there's a property, a land division, so if somebody's doing a CSM or a plat, we factor these rates in, and that's what we charge the developer at that time. I don't know that we got anything, we got two of them pending right now.
Do you think in 2 weeks you could have the cost breakdown?
Oh, definitely.
And how many maybe we've issued in the last couple of years, just to kind of give an idea. I'm talking 10, I'm talking 100.
Sure.
And then if you can get any data on other cities too, I think would be great. So I'd make a motion to hold this for 2 weeks in order to get that information, the cost breakdown of the 6-inch storm connection for the storm sewer. How many we've had per year for, how far back it can go, 5 years, 10 years. And then if possible to get some comparisons to other cities. It's a good idea to see if we're right in line with everybody, or if we're high or low, or how they handle it.
And if we were to have a reduced connection fee, how would that impact, could we project how it might impact?
Well, with Alderman Reary's request
That would
to
handle
check and see
everything.
how many we've issued per year, that's gonna,
It'll come out.
yeah, we'll know that right away. If we know how many we're issuing, then we can tell what the impact's gonna be with any adjustments.
Of course, if you lower the fee, you may have more application.
I mean,
That's okay.
if I could, I think that there is some merit in.
I need a second first before we get into discussion.
Well, I'll second that.
Okay, second by, there's a motion by Worry to hold, second by Nenning, under discussion, Dave.
Okay, I think there is some merit in looking at this because, you know, there are cases where people decide not to connect because they know what the fee is, and, you know, we want people to connect to the infrastructure that's available.
That's what I'm, that's what I'm
That's the point.
trying to direct the
Everybody
committee
was
towards.
connected.
Okay. That's good input. John, do you got any?
Nothing else.
Nothing? Okay. Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Okay.
Or whoever's doing it.
I pushed everything. Lost my place.
He likes doing homework.
6.
Yes, sir. Number 6, consideration of possible action on request from the purchasing manager for approval to purchase 2 sets of multi-purpose cutting tools and accessories for the sewer division from Envirotech Equip for $26,818.
The department tested various types of tools and has requested through their testing and due diligence to purchase from the NOSTech. This is just basically a motor with a bunch of accessories to it. And I guess they use it, for trim the roots in the sewers and clean debris, et cetera. I'm not exactly sure what they use it for.
Mostly what this does, this is a high-speed, low-torque cutting tool, and when we have mineral deposits in our lines, we're actually able to cut through those minerals and get the pipe opened up again. And as Rick indicated, we've been demoing equipment from manufacturers for several years. So they'll bring equipment in, we actually go out and use it in the field, observe how it's working, rather than buy something, get the investment and find out it didn't work so well. So with trial and error, what we've determined is these lumberjack cutters are among the best in the market. So rather than going out for a competitive bid, what we've asked to do is to go with a sole source, so we get this exact cutter, because we know exactly what it's going to do.
I did work with a negotiation between the manufacturer, and they only have one dealer for the state of Wisconsin. We did achieve a $740 savings just by working between the manufacturer and the dealer. But the cost of these 2 units is $26,818.
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Worry, second by
Second.
Nenning. Under discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. 7, consideration of possible action on the review and award of the contract downtown bridge lighting replacement 2018. Director Grenier.
We bid out the replacement lighting for the bridges yesterday, and what we had was, there was a little bit of confusion with when we did this in 2017. So we tried to clarify it a little bit more. We have 4 alternates here, and what the alternates represent. Alternates 1 and 2 would be the manufacturer of the lighting system is Lumen Pulse, and I believe alternate 1 would be a Lumen Pulse system on the Walnut Street Bridge. Alternate 2 is a Lumen Pulse system on the Main Street Bridge. Then in order to make sure that we could get competition, we had a Philips-based lighting system. So alternate 3 is a Philips lighting system on Walnut, and alternate 4 would be a Philips system on the Main Street Bridge. So staff is recommending award of the Philips system, alternates 3 and 4 only, to Northern Electric, who is the low qualified bidder. By refining the scope of the project and rebidding this, especially at this time of the year. When we bid this in 2017, the bid price came in at $1.375 million. We are down to $897,000. We do have this money in the capital program from last year.
Any questions, concerns? Dave?
I think this, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this started with the 2016 bond issue. And what I remembered was that we bonded something like 700,000 for the
Yep.
bridge lighting upgrade.
Correct.
And so,
We're almost at 9 between the 700 we had bonded for, some contingency money that was included in our bond issue, and some other projects that came in under contract, or under CIP price. We've got the 900. It's our opinion, based on, I've had a lot of conversations on this project over the last 3 months while we've been pulling it together. We are never going to see prices lower than this. This is as low as it's ever going to be.
and we are not doing Mason, we're just doing one.
Correct. Again, I've been in conversation with the DOT. As a matter of fact, I was just over there 2 weeks ago. They are interviewing consulting firms right now. They are going forward with a design program looking at various options for the Tillman Bridge, and they've not told us no. They have strongly suggested that we don't do a lot of investment on the Mason Street Bridge because the options they are looking at range anywhere from a redeck of that bridge up to a complete reconstruction of that bridge, and it's going to happen within about 12 years. So I don't want to invest $400,000 in a lighting system replacement out there that's only going to last 10 years. That's just, in my opinion, that's not good money spent.
Is 10 years life expectancy?
No, we're expecting to get 15 to 20 out of these lighting systems. The existing lighting systems that are on those bridges was installed when Nitschke was rebuilt in '98, so we got 20 out of them. And for a high-pressure sodium-based lighting system, that was phenomenal. But we are actually at a point right now where some of the fixtures, the way the fixtures connect to the box typically winds up being one of the weak spots. The lamps are at the end of their useful life, so the lamps are starting to die out. For our electricians, very difficult to replace those lamps. A lot of those lamps we can't get anymore. They're simply not being manufactured as lighting manufacturers are going to energy efficient. You can't just take an LED bulb and screw it into a incandescent fixture, not for this type of lighting. So to just simply swap things out is not a possibility. Also, where the fixtures connect to the boxes, that's kind of the weak point. And when you have a current running through and then water or salt, which we have both, you're in proximity to water, and there's de-icing compounds we use on the bridges, that's where your corrosion starts, is at the connection point. So we actually have the fixtures are starting to corrode, and we've had several on, especially on the Mason Street Bridge, where we come by and the fixtures are swinging by the cords. So the fixtures, the lighting system on all three of the bridges, definitely did its job. We're very happy with the performance. Obviously, there was a commitment on behalf of the city to have those bridges lit going back to 1998. The lights have served their useful life. It's time to replace them. And again, working both with, and one of the things we did a little differently this time out versus 2017 was we had a lot more direct interaction with the manufacturers of the lighting systems. Working again with Berner Schober, our consultant, we actually got right down with lighting designers at Lumenpulse and at Philips. And when we had lightings, because the original design we started with from a budgetary perspective was a Lumenpulse design system. So we refined that, and once we had it, then we shared the Lumenpulse design with Philips, so we could be assured that we were getting apples to apples. Well, that only works to a certain extent. Who knows if Philips is giving you the same thing? So once Philips got their system designed, we took the Philips design and we shared it with the Lumenpulse engineers as well. So both guys saw each other's system, and both guys then signed off and said, yes, we are competing on an equal field, apples to apples, may the best man win. And not only the overall pricing, but if you look at each individual contractor, the difference between their alternate 1 and alternate 3 and their alternate 2 and alternate 4, they're they're right under a blanket. The manufacturers were very, very tight on their pricing. The material pricing was very, very close. The remainder of it is how they were doing the installation. Some of the contractors were doing it using snooper trucks. Some of the contractors did it using barges. So it's a combination of traffic control, equipment rental, and labor.
Okay, so that is an installed price.
That's installed,
And,
yes.
and we expect the same energy efficiency out of Phillips as we would.
Yep. Like I said, both manufacturers actually commented back to me when we were getting ready to go out for bid, that this is highly unusual for us to be sharing that level of information, and it gave them good comfort that we were actually bidding out an apples-to-apples comparison.
Okay, if I remember correctly, this is supposed to be considerably more energy efficient. Than
Yes,
what we've got
very
right
much
now.
so.
I don't know if there are any estimates on it.
No, but it's actually kind of hard to.
Depends how much you use it.
Exactly, because we don't use the system every day, every night. But I do have some estimates back from the design phase that Roy Campbell, our lead electrician, did. And there were assumptions built into it, but assuming that we ran the system this many hours per day and then moved to an LED system, I forget what he told me the return on investment was. That's how it all started. That's before we ever designed the system. That's what made us think, okay, now is the time, let's go and go LED.
Okay.
So if you're interested in some of that history, I definitely have that in the file.
Yeah,
It's
I think that was shared with us in the past. Maybe
Yeah,
we talked
before we
about this.
even went out for
Yeah.
design services.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you one, is this strictly city money then, that's being
Yes.
allowed here?
Yes.
No help from any state or
Nope,
federal government?
nope.
Okay, what are the wishes of the committee?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Worry, second by Henning. Under
Alternate
discussion?
3 and 4.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I
Number
thought you were gonna
8,
do that, Jeff.
consideration possible action and approval of a contract amendment number 3 for relocation services with Moss Associates. The amount of $28,925 associated with the acquisition of the right-of-way required for reconstruction of Webster Avenue, University Avenue to Radisson. Director Grenier.
Okay, we've had a couple of these in the past. Basically, the way that things are set up for the real estate acquisition and relocation, DOT only allows us to do these things as we get to each individual property. So we entered into an original contract with Moss to do the first set of reloads, and then as we acquire new properties, we have to do a reload plan. This is simply just an extension of that on a per parcel basis. So we contracted with him for, say, like 10 parcels, and then we acquired 2 more. We have to do a contract amendment to pay him to do those next 2. So we'll continue to do this as we acquire and do the reloads. I think there's a total of 24 that are needed for the entire project.
Relocations, there's 31.
31. Oh, that's right, because there's more than one.
24 parcels to
24
buy.
parcels, and sometimes you have if it's a multi-family parcel, each unit that's being relocated is another reload.
Yep.
Basically, then, these are just the fair market value of these properties?
No, what this is this is paying our consultant to do the relocation plan for the folks living in the properties we're acquiring. So this isn't the actual reload payment, that would be under a separate item. This is, we don't have the staff in-house, we don't have that staff expertise to do a reload under the DOT or to do this volume of them in the time frame we need, so we have to contract this out to Moss Associates.
Okay, but are they just giving us the estimate of the value of the property itself here now?
No, that would be the when we do the appraisals. This is actually the reload plan, so there's a variety of things that go into the reload plan, making sure, you don't want to take somebody and acquire a property from them. So let's say if it's a rental situation, okay? Somebody's living in a house and they're paying $800 a month in rent, and they have these amenities. And we're gonna buy that property, and these folks have to find a new place to live. This guy finds them a new place to live that's comparable in rent, comparable in location, comparable in amenities and things that are around them, you know, so he's kind of like a real estate agent for the people being relocated, to make sure that they get the same as what they
Is this
have.
the actual figure then? These figures?
This would be services, his services to do the relo plan, yes.
Oh.
I think, John, you're looking at 8 or 9. This is number 8. Yeah, 9 is the actual.
Oh, then they're, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's pretty
Yeah, I was
pricey.
gonna say, wow.
Oh, yeah, he's-
Okay,
Okay,
Nice catch.
pardon me on that one. Then there
Otherwise,
were
yeah, it would be
28,000 for the relocate, okay.
yes, sir, sorry.
Otherwise, yeah, it would be pretty
Pardon me.
pricey.
Well, I think we have to have the service in order to do it, so I move to approve.
Motion by Nenning to approve, second by
I'll approve.
Vanderleest. Under discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. Number 9, consideration of possible action of the following offering price reports: Webster Avenue, University Ave to Radisson Street, project ID 4987-02-64, and Burkhart and Molly Barron, parcel 9, $115,000. Douglas Schneider, $95,000. Parcel 14, Avenue Investments LLC, $101,000. Parcel 23, Director Grenier.
So this is what we're actually offering to purchase the parcel, and again, this is the first step in the acquisition. We offer them a price, they have the ability to counter that. These are offering price reports number 20, 21, and 22 so far out of the 24 that are necessary for the project. So we only have 3 more OPRs to bring forward. Then once we negotiate that price and the reload costs, obviously we'll bring those back as well.
Any questions, concerns? If not, entertain a motion. Motion approved. By Worry, second by
Second.
Nenning. Under discussion here, none, all in favor? Aye. Nays, motion carried. 10, consideration of possible action on application tree brush trimmer license by the following. Can we just take them all together, Steve? You
We
got any?
definitely can.
Okay. Let's take 10A through G with one motion.
And all of them have held tree brush
Right.
trimmer license, we recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve 10A through G. Second by Vanderleest, under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. 11, consideration of possible action on applications on concrete sidewalk builders license by the following. We got any issues with these two?
Louise has held a license in the past, S&J has not. Recommend approval of both contingent upon positive reference check on S&J
Okay,
contract.
let's take 11A and B together with one motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Vanderleest,
Second.
second by Nenning. Under discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays, motion carried. 12, Director's Report. Director Grenier.
Very short report. So far, we've been pretty darn lucky with winter. Weather has been cooperating with us, so we've only had, I think, 2 or 3 full plows throughout the city, but we're actually up around 15 spreading operations. So with the weather bouncing back and forth around the freeze point like it has, we are still going through quite a bit of salt trying to keep roads open, but thankfully, we haven't had to plow as much. The forecast that I'm seeing for long range, we got a lot of winter left in us. I got a feeling that both February and March, we've got some major storms headed our way. But very proud of the fact that the folks have been able to keep up with it, and by and large, we've been able to stay down to bare streets across the city, so that's been good. Got through our winter, or bulk collection around the Christmas holiday and got out of that with no major concerns, so sanitation did a phenomenal job there. We have gone citywide and handed out the 2018 literature to all residents across the city, so everybody should have their service guide in their calendars when we have bulk and overflow collection and all that kind of stuff. Sewer section, we had EPA in on Friday last week, Matt has been before the committee in the past talking about the sanitary sewer CMOM. Joan was up from Chicago to do an in-place review of our progress on the CMOM to date, and she gave us very encouraging news. She's very happy with the progress that we've made. We do have some things that still need attention. We're definitely not perfect, but continuing downward trend on the number of sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups that we're seeing. She was very impressed with the sewer section and how they've been able to step their game up and get through the cleaning rotation. We are down, about 8 years ago, I think we were at about an 11-year rotation to get through the city for cleaning. And we are down around, composite number, down around 6 years right now, citywide, and chiseling away at that in a hurry. So again, the cutter head that you guys recommended approval for tonight, we appreciate that because that's helping us do a better job citywide. So DPW's hitting on all cylinders. Jim and I just met with engineering staff recently again to make sure, you know, with Kristen taking a new position at water utility, we kind of lost that intermediate manager step. So Jim and I have both jumped in to make sure we're providing that direction and getting questions answered. And the young engineers are doing a great job and stepping up. So we're happy with where things are headed.
Bonding for 2018 coming up soon?
Expect the bonding request to come either at the, I'm hopeful 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be talking about our capital program. And with the capital program, then the bonding is part of that. Usually when CIP is approved, you folks instruct us to forward our bonding request to finance. So I'm hopeful that, 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be doing that.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? If not, motion to receive and place on file. February, second by Nene, or Vanderleest, under discussion, here none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, motion to adjourn by Nene. Second by Vanderleest, under discussion, here none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried, we're done. Do. You can have